Do not be afraid to subscribe. This is where you hear the unadulterated truth and no holds barred, real information for people that want to know about boxing, want to know about any controversies, anything that people are afraid to actually speak about, but they don't speak about in the mainstream TV. But here on Tony Also Knows Boxing, he speaks the truth. He speaks stuff that the mainstream media doesn't want to promote or show because it's too risky for their corporations and it interferes with their monopoly of making money. So I'm going to tell you right now, Tony Also Knows Boxing is a channel that's growing, and I want everybody that tunes into this channel to keep subscribing. I appreciate all the support that I'm getting from everybody all over the world, from everywhere. So I just want to say there's a lot of different things that I want to touch upon in this channel, but I'm going to start with Xander Zayas. Xander Zayas was very successful, and he was the first Puerto Rican to actually fight and unify a belt, the WBA to be exact, in the island of Puerto Rico. It was the first Puerto Rican to actually do that, and he's the youngest champion. And he became a premier. He solidified himself as a premier superstar when he unified the belt against Abbas Barral in Puerto Rico recently by adding the WBA strap to his super welterweight WBO championship. So now he's the WBO super welterweight champion and the WBA, the unified champion at 154. A lot of competition there. We have Jerome Boots Ennis. We have Virgil Ortiz. I think he's going to fight Josh Kelly. That is his next opponent, I think. I'm not sure. But he called him out after the fight, and he called out everybody. And he basically threw a jab at Oscar De La Hoya. Because Oscar De La Hoya was saying that in Puerto Rico, they don't sell fights. The fights don't make money there. And then he proved it to him by telling him on the live, look, you say that Puerto Ricans don't sell. Look at all these people over here. And he basically gave hope to the people that grew up in the projects in Puerto Rico. And that had me in tears because a lot of people in those caseríos, especially La Margaritas, he called them. That's why I used to hang out with my cousin who passed away. God rest his soul. Yeah, so when he said all that, it was really touching and moving because he actually gave hope to the youth that are growing up in the caseríos in Puerto Rico. And that was a great victory, and it solidified him as a superstar in Puerto Rico. And right now, he's the unified champion. So, yeah, there was 11,000 people watching Xander Zayas. That was a lot of people. So he's a superstar in Puerto Rico. So it's a matter of time with Xander Zayas. Let's talk about Shakur Stevenson. Subscribe to the channel. Tony Also Knows Boxing. You're tuning into my channel. Do not be afraid to click the like button. Do not be afraid to subscribe. As you know, Mauricio Suleiman has stripped Shakur Stevenson of his belt right after he beat Teofimo Lopez in impressive fashion and got the WBO belt from Puerto Rico, which is a Puerto Rican organization. He was able to dominate Teofimo Lopez, like I said to many people who were undermining Shakur Stevenson's skills and they weren't giving him the credit. He proved a lot of people wrong. So a lot of people are coming out of the woodworks and saying they support Shakur Stevenson, specifically Puerto Ricans. A lot of them do, but a lot of them are coming out of the woodworks that didn't support Shakur Stevenson previously. Frontline. How you doing, my brother? Frontline. He's one of my usual fans that tune into my lives. Frontline 135, Tony Chat. Yeah, with the Puerto Rican flag. I appreciate you, my brother. I appreciate you. Gior 546, thanks for tuning into the channel. Strike GTV, thanks for tuning in. Yo, thanks for, yeah, I appreciate the comment. Strike GTV, guess what? Anyway, I appreciate everybody tuning into the channel. Thanks for joining the family. This is where you get the unholds barred truth, and we don't hold back over here on this channel. Subscribe to the channel. Tony Also Knows Boxing. You're tuning into my channel. Subscribe to the channel. Yes, so Shakur Stevenson was stripped by Mauricio Suleiman right after he defeated Teofimo Lopez because in the rules in the WBC, but based on what Suleiman's has addressed, he says that any fighter fighting in multiple divisions for a different organization has to pay a $120,000 fee to have a belt in a different organization, which the WBA is a different organization than the WBC. So the WBC, based on the track record, they actually charge the most, and the WBO, and I don't know about the WBA, but the WBO has not actually give any stipulations where if you fight for a different title, a different organization, we're going to charge you a certain fee. And they don't have the strict rules that the WBC has. And the WBO tells you up front what they're going to charge you, but they don't do things like the WBC where they actually try to gatekeep and dictate what you do and how much they charge you if you have a belt that's from a different body organization like the WBO, which is different from the WBC. So they wanted to charge, Shakur Stevenson $120,000, and Shakur Stevenson said, "I'd rather give that money to my daughter. They just butt hurt because I fought for a different belt and they weren't part of it." So that's what he said about Mauricio Suleiman. Not in those words, but I'm just paraphrasing. So I agree. I think the WBC, Mauricio Suleiman, of course, they can charge because you're using that belt. But for them to charge you a fee of $120,000 because you're fighting in a different organization, that is really extreme. I think that's wrong, and you shouldn't charge that much money. I think they're monopolizing on the champion because yes, Shakur Stevenson was fighting for the 135 weight division. He fought for the WBC. Yes, he got the opportunity with Willie Cepeda to fight him because of Mauricio Suleiman, but that doesn't give him the right to charge him that much just because he went to a different belt and then he didn't agree with the price. They should have negotiated with him and lower the price because that was too much of a high price. And I think that that's really wrong. And the WBC belt is charging extremely a lot of money that other organizations are not doing. And Roy Jones can allude to that. Terence Crawford can allude to that. He said the WBA and the other championship organizations do not charge what the WBC charges. That's what I heard from them. And okay, let me read the comments. Official Simon, thanks for tuning into the channel. Frontline, thanks for tuning into the channel. Mauricio did Shakur a favor. He didn't strip him. He vacated the belt. The only reason he charged Shakur is because Shakur wanted to stay active at 135. The 120 was an estimate based on the purse. But we don't really know exactly how much the purse was. Frontline, they're just giving a number out there. But he wanted to stay at the 135 weight class and also have the WBO simultaneously. And yes, and that was the rough draft number, $120,000. But he did confess that in the interview with one of the Zone commentators. I forgot his name. I think it was Mannix. Yeah, Mannix. It was subject to change. Yeah, there was hypothetically he did say Mauricio Suleiman, hypothetically it was subject to change, but we don't know what happened behind closed doors with Shakur Stevenson and Mauricio Suleiman, but yes, he did allude to it was subject to change, but of course he could say that to save face. But the only people that really know what really happened is Shakur Stevenson and Mauricio Suleiman. Those are the ones that really know what took place. We're just hearing the aftermath of what wasn't seen behind closed doors, whatever sinister happened behind closed doors. So we really never really know exactly. But I appreciate your comment, Frontline. Subscribe to the channel. Tony also knows boxing. You're tuning into my channel. Let me see what time it is. I still have time. Tony also knows boxing. All right, now let's talk about it was subject to, okay, let me see what you're saying. All right, LM Tribs TC says, I'm going to cook up some chicken thighs. Thanks for tuning into the channel, my brother. Subscribe to the channel. Tony also knows boxing. Now let's talk about the tweets of Jake Paul. Jake Paul was telling everybody, all his little MAGA people that follow him, because he's a Donald Trump supporter, he was telling him not to turn off the Super Bowl with Bad Bunny, and he was trying to get everybody to watch Kid Rock on a platform that was not even able to actually, put it up the way they wanted to. There was some difficulty with the platform that they had for Kid Rock. It was not able to be supported, and there was a lot of backlash. And he said something that was very disrespectful. He basically called Bad Bunny a fake American, following Bad Bunny's Super Bowl halftime show that lasted 13 minutes. and I think he did a great job as far as the entertainment value and the performance. I agree with a lot of the things Bad Bunny says, but at the same time, I feel like what's going on in Puerto Rico is bigger than entertainment. I feel like the entertainment is good, but what happens with the leadership for Puerto Rico? Like, we need a leader that's really going to change the colonial situation. That's not a binding vote. That Congress actually dictates and controls what Puerto Rico does and what Puerto Rico cannot do. And we are on an unincorporated territory of the United States. We're not part of the United States. We belong to the United States. That is a crime. That's slavery. So basically, we are in the insular cases. Puerto Rican people are in the insular cases where the United States Supreme Court said that Puerto Ricans have too many alien races that are not white. They have no right to have free blessings of free government because they are alien savage tribes that need to be civilized. This is in the insular cases. So to say that Puerto Ricans are Americans, they only wanted Puerto Rico to be American citizenship as a second class citizenship so they can take and exploit our resources and exploit the tax exemptions where Act 60 and U.S. corporations can actually exploit not paying taxes, and politicians that work in Puerto Rico, they work in cahoots with the politicians in the United States and the United States government. They all work in cahoots with Congress to sell the island to outsiders who are not Puerto Rican. And the Puerto Ricans have a situation where they don't have a binding vote. And the reason why Puerto Ricans are treated this way is because Puerto Rico was illegally invaded for the benefit of the United States with Charles Herbert Allen, where they benefited from the sugar industry and exploited all the Puerto Ricans and imposed slavery on the Puerto Ricans so they could make money with Domino sugar and bring it to Wall Street. And this happened in the 1940s and 30s, and they killed Albizu Campos because Albizu Campos created a successful strike against Charles Herbert Allen. And this is the reason why they murdered Albizu Campos, and they used radiation on him. And there's evidence in the FBI files with carpetas that they used radiation on Albizu Campos and murdered him. And the reason why they murdered him is because once he created that successful strike against the United States, Charles Herbert Allen, and the monopoly of the sugar industry, which is Domino Sugar today. That's exactly what they exploited the Puerto Ricans and used them as slaves in those days with the sugar industry. They enslaved the Puerto Ricans and gave them low wages. And Albizu Campos created a successful strike where he raised the wages of all the Puerto Rican workers. And Charles Herbert Allen declared, and the United States government and the military declared a war against all Puerto Ricans, and specifically Albizu Campos. They started following him around and started surveillancing him throughout the island. They imprisoned him and they used radiation and killed him. And to prevent the pain from the radiation, the BDI radiation, Albizu Campos had to cover his head with towels to prevent the pain that he was feeling when he was getting the radiations from the FBI and in jail. So this was proven in the FBI files in Carpeta. It was exposed, all the information that they did use radiation on Albizu Campos. And then when Albizu Campos was being targeted by the United States government because he created a successful strike, and he was helping Puerto Rico become independent, and they knew that he had a voice, and he had a lot of discourses where a lot of Puerto Ricans were being convinced that they wanted to be independent. But the United States U.S. authorities imprisoned Albizu Campos to stop the national movement of Puerto Rico, so Puerto Rico could be a colony in an unincorporated territory of the United States for the financial benefit of U.S. corporations, the United States government, and Congress. It's a business. Puerto Rico's a business. So Puerto Rico, we're not real Americans because the United States government imposed the unincorporated territory on us because they wanted what we had, our resources, and Puerto Rico doesn't benefit from those resources because the local agriculture cannot compete with the imports of 85% from the United States and other places where they go through Jacksonville and they go to Puerto Rico, and then Puerto Ricans pay double taxes because of it, and it just stagnates the agriculture of Puerto Rico, and they have to charge more money because the imports are more cheaper in the stores. So this is a monopoly. They have tariffs on Puerto Rico, and all the tariffs go to the United States government and the United States corporation. So, Amanda defends her identity, and she states on social media that she's a proud Puerto Rican, and that Puerto Ricans are American citizens, adding that Puerto Ricans are not fake Americans. Well, the thing is, this is the way Jake Paul really feels about Puerto Ricans. He's a racist. Like, he signed Amanda Serrano, and Puerto Ricans, the ones that love the colonizer, that have Stockholm syndrome, they love the colonizer. So those are the ones that want to be part of the USA, and they don't know their history. They love the colonizer, so they actually say that Jake Paul did a lot of things for Puerto Rico. At what expense? Amanda Serrano, she won those fights with Taylor, with Katie Taylor. But the last one she lost. But the other two, she won. And why didn't Jake Paul protect his fighter? He couldn't protect his fighter against Eddie Hearns because Eddie Hearns has more influence. But he probably could have protected Amanda Serrano. He probably could have. But, you know, this is the way he really feels about Puerto Ricans. He feels that we are fake Americans, that he's not going to support us. And he basically, Amanda Serrano rebuked what he said, but she's still adopting the second-class citizenship that was imposed on Puerto Ricans. Like, you should not be on two sides of the fences. You should just decide what you really want. But the thing is that you're either independent or a slave of the United States by being an unincorporated territory colony. You know, because the United Nations, they took out that we was a colony, and they actually said that we were satisfied. They basically said that we were satisfied slaves, and they took it out of the United Nations, so we don't have a voice to be independent. So they use the political system of the plebiscite to control the Puerto Rican people and to make sure that they keep robbing money under the table and keep blaming all the politicians and keep the wheel running. So it's an infinite problem. So we blamed for the Puerto Rican government, which is not a legal government. We're not even a real government because we was illegally invaded by the United States. They blamed the Puerto Rican governor, not government, governor. But the Puerto Rican governor works in cahoots with the United States Congress and the United States. And we're just, slaves of the United States. That's what they have us as. So that's why we got to be an independent country. We have to be independent because they're trying to eradicate Puerto Ricans out of the island and exploiting the tax exemptions that Puerto Rican locals do not benefit from. So, this gets me so upset, and I get passionate about this because the way they treat Puerto Ricans, they treat us as third-class citizens, not second-class. I take it a step further in my music, and I say that they treat Puerto Ricans as third-class citizens, not second-class, because we're so far beyond, oppressed, because the way they've treated us because of our race. In the Insular cases, they said that Puerto Ricans do not deserve the blessings of free government because they're alien races that have too many African, Indian, Spanish blood, too much African blood and Indian blood in the Spanish mix of what makes a Puerto Rican. They said that we can be disposed, they can take away our property, they could use this as property, and we're not treated as human beings because of it. Because we're in the Insular cases since 1904, and we're still under the Insular cases. Subscribe to the channel. Tony also knows boxing. This topic gets me so upset, but a lot of content creators are still supporting, we're American citizens. They don't want us to be respected. The United States government don't really respect Puerto Ricans as real Americans. And Puerto Ricans got to stop begging the United States government and Congress to treat us as real Americans when they don't want to treat us like that, because they want to just exploit our land, take our property, and displace us. And that's what they're trying to do, but we're not going to allow that. Puerto Ricans are not going to allow that because we're united, and we have to unite the tribes. Check out my single, Unite the Tribes, on all major platforms. Free Puerto Rico. Check out that single too. Check out my new album, Mi Patria Linda. Yeah, so we have to understand that we're going against a paradigm that is using and exploiting Puerto Rico. Congress, U.S. Congress, the United States government, and all the politicians in Puerto Rico are slaves of the United States government and Congress. They all work together to help each other. They don't represent the Puerto Rican people. They represent the financial capital of the United States. And all the politicians in Puerto Rico represent the financial capital of the United States. The PNP party is controlled by Donald Trump and the Congress. They all work in cahoots to make sure that the investors invest in the PNP party because it benefits their financial interest. They're not going to invest in an independent party. So is that really good what they're doing to Puerto Ricans? They're treating us like slaves, like they always have, and we have to break out of that because we're bigger than that. Okay, let me read the comments. I don't agree with Bad Bunny politically, but his Super Bowl performance was fire. Entertainers need to entertain and keep politics in out, in my humble opinion. I feel like if he has something to say, he should be able to say it. We shouldn't just allow him to just be a performer. If he has something to say and it makes sense, and it's to help Puerto Ricans be independent, why not? I think there should be more flexibility. If it's freedom of speech, we should be allowed to talk about whatever we want. That's what the government don't want, for us to say whatever we want to say. And I'm not saying that Bad Bunny is doing everything that we want Puerto Ricans to do as far as being independent, but it's a step in the right direction. Same with Jay, he needs to stay as a promoter and keep politics out. Yes, he's taking advantage of the tax breaks and PR, but that's just business. Business is business, but at the same time, he's still exploiting the tax exemptions of Puerto Rico, and all that's doing is forcing Puerto Ricans to leave Puerto Rico because the prices go up and everything goes up, and then the Puerto Ricans can't afford to live in Puerto Rico. So no, there's got to be something to be done for Puerto Ricans to stay. And I think they should eradicate Act 60, eradicate the Jones Act law, all those things that impede the progress of Puerto Rico's agriculture and Puerto Rico's economy, because they're not putting money in Puerto Rico's economy. They're only putting it in the United States economy. I think that's wrong. And I think that Congress has to put a binding vote for Puerto Ricans to be independent. We have look, we said frontline, look, you said we can't be independent in PR. We don't have the funds to be independent. Let me tell you something. If they take away those laws, Act 60, and they take away the Jones Act law, and they give us reparations, and they allow us they give us back what they took from us, the United States, and then they take all those corrupt politicians out of there. We got Eliseo Molina in the Senate, and he's an independent Senate, and he has the answer for Puerto Rico to be have an economy of production, not an economy of consumerism. That's what's going on with Puerto Rico now. They got an economy of consumerism with the Jones Act law imposed by Congress. Woodrow Wilson. But yeah, I gotta go. Subscribe to the channel. Tony also knows boxing. You're tuning into my channel. Subscribe to the channel. Yeah. So you gotta read a little bit more frontline about what's going on. The only reason why Puerto Rico is not able to have the funds is because the United States imposed the Act 60, the Jones Act law, and all the tax exemptions and all the tariffs. They go to Puerto Rico. They take away from Puerto Rico and they give it to the United States, and that's what happens. So and then all the tax exemptions, Puerto Ricans don't get it. Subscribe to the channel. Tony also knows boxing. You're tuning into my channel.